If you take a look at the history of application delivery in IT, you'll find that there's been a lot of forks in the road. Way back in the earliest days, the way in which we IT professionals would deliver applications to users was, well, by walking around with some kind of media, DVD or CD, or in the earliest of days, even floppy disks. Well, if you're like me and you spend a lot of time sitting in front of people's desktops, whiling away the hours as applications got installed one floppy disk at a time, you can recognize why we in IT have spent a lot of time and investment into creating automated delivery solutions for applications. Our users will argue that receiving their applications, having access to them, is probably the most important thing that we do in IT. Well, over the years, the ways in which those applications have been delivered have grown not only in scope but also in number. We can use automated solutions to deliver applications directly onto desktops. We can use newer technologies like terminal services and what we're here to talk about with Citrix to deliver them using remote control protocols. And so over time, well, the ways in which applications got delivered went from one single, solitary, somewhat mind-melting method to a vast menagerie of options. Well, it's only in recent years that companies like Citrix have recognized that the variety of solutions perhaps could be best managed if they were once again unified into a single solution. And that's what you're seeing here today with Citrix Xendesktop 7. In this version, more so than any version in the past, you will have the option to deliver your applications to users atop servers, atop desktops. You can deliver them as applications. You can deliver them as desktops themselves. There's a whole lot of options from a single unified solution. My name is Greg Shields, and over the next series of nuggets, we're going to spend some time talking about the 1YO200 and 1YO300 CCA exams. More importantly, I hope to give you all the information you need to be successful in managing and deploying application and desktop solutions atop the Citrix Xendesktop 7.x platform. Unlike pretty much all of Citrix's previous releases, this is the first time that they've really unified the classic server-based computing world with the more newfangled VDI world. And so for one central console, I can now create VDI environments, I can create server-based computing environments, and deliver applications via whatever mechanisms make sense for the user, for the application, and for the device that we're ultimately sending that to. We've got something like 20 or 20 plus nuggets here that we're going to spend some time with in going through all the steps that you'll need to go through to create this environment and then recognize how to manage it once it's in production. Our goal, why we're here today, is to help develop your skills, to assist you for preparing for, installing, configuring, and doing that ongoing maintenance of a Citrix Xendesktop 7.x infrastructure. Now, from this moment on, you'll hear me use the term Xendesktop 7, but Xendesktop version 7, at least at this point, already has additional versions. I think there's a 7.1 version. There may be additional ones by the time you read this as well. The goal here is to use the 7 infrastructure to help you prepare yourself for the ways in which Citrix intends for you to get applications delivered, the strategies in which you can get those applications delivered. Along the way, we're going to spend some time helping you prepare for those all-important 1YO200 and 1YO300 exams. I also hope to spend some time kind of talking to you about my own personal experiences and some of the best practices I've learned over the years in delivering applications with technologies like Citrix. There's a bit of a kind of mind shattering and reconfiguration that has to happen here for you to really truly appreciate how Citrix has created this application delivery infrastructure. And so hopefully over this period of 20 plus nuggets, you'll have an opportunity to kind of rethink your entire approach for how you deliver those applications and why you would deliver them through the different options that will be exposed to you. You may find that there's a couple of these nuggets upcoming that are going to be a little challenging to really understand at first. And so a couple of listen-throughs, it might take a couple of listen-throughs for you to really kind of grasp exactly what it is that Citrix is trying to accomplish here with Xendesktop 7. Now, in this nugget, I want to kind of just kick off things by helping you understand just a bit about the exams themselves. Throughout this series, we're going to focus in on the technology. While we're focusing in on that technology, I want you to also kind of just prepare yourself should you be interested in taking those exams. If you're only interested in learning about the solution, don't sweat it, because this is not an exam prep series by any stretch. But the idea here is to help you gather the knowledge you need to be successful with the exams, while at the same time, well, being successful in delivering that all-important environment that is what your daily job entails. We will, in this nugget, talk about Citrix's version 7 certification, kind of where these exams fit with the certification program in general. We'll talk a bit about the intended audience for the CCA. And if you want to be a CCA, well, these exams are designed for a certain kind of level of experience that you may or may not have at this point. Got a few notes on the exam itself, just some things you should be aware of and where you can go should you want to take it. And then also I want to spend some time talking about the outline that I've set up for this series. Now, in putting together this training course, this series of nuggets, what I wanted to do was implement the technologies in using the path that you might be implementing them yourselves. We'll start out with some of the simpler solutions like Xendesktop 7 atop machine creation services, which is the mechanism by which Xendesktop communicates with your favorite hypervisor. We'll then move into other technologies like provisioning services, which is another approach for delivering the assets that you'll layer your applications on top of. We'll talk a bit about AppV. We'll talk also about NetScaler should you want to extend your application delivery infrastructure out into untrusted zones like the internet. So all of these are aligned up in a very specific order based on, again, how you will probably end up implementing them in your own environment. If taking the exam is your goal, I'll spend a minute just talking about the objectives for the exam and how you might prepare yourselves for that exam, and then give you an idea of how you might construct your own network at home so that you can follow along as we go through all the demonstrations here in this series. I tend to use VMware Workstation as the tool for creating the virtual machines. If you have another virtualization solution you prefer, you're welcome to use it, but VMware Workstation is the one that I'm using here as we're going through all of the demonstrations. Now, if you've been paying attention to the product and version releases coming out of Citrix, you may have noticed that since the original release of this series, that Citrix has gone about changing the product names again. Well, I wanted to give you just a quick note on this new version 7.5, and how the move to Xendesktop has now forked once again back into separate solutions, Xendesktop and Xenapp. And to talk a little bit about, just really quickly about what you can anticipate from this series and how it relates to what you're going to find in Xendesktop version 7.5. The first question that you may be asking is, okay, well, if there's a new version, well, what's new in the new version? Well, I guess I'm happy to report. I'm ecstatic to report. I'm not very happy to report. I guess I'm here to report the fact that the updates to this product in version 7.5 are relatively minimal. And in fact, for the content, the specific content that we're dealing with here in this series, there are no relevant updates between 7.0, or really 7.1 and 7.5 that are worth refilming any portion of this series. So everything that you see here that relates to Xendesktop was filmed on originally in version 7.0, but is still relevant today here in a version 7.5 world, which is kind of this third bullet down here. So don't sweat it. Even though that you're seeing or watching this series as it relates to 7.0, you can anticipate everything you're seeing in 7.5 as being essentially the exact same product. For all intents and purposes, Xendesktop version 7.5 is an update that is kind of a compilation of a lot of different bug fixes. There are a couple of different major improvements that are happening, or really, they're not even really major. Really, 7.5 now supports cloud deployments of Xenapp and Xendesktop, remote power control for physical PCs whenever you're doing remote PC access, which is a technology we'll talk about a little later in the series. We have support for AppDNA, which is a Citrix product that we won't discuss here in this series. And there's also an update to Citrix Storefront, which will improve some of the early quirkiness of that original version of Storefront. I believe also in 7.5 we have additional support for vSphere version 5.5 hypervisors, so we can make connections there. The big question on people's minds as it relates to version 7.0, 7.1, and 7.5 is, well, what the heck happened with Xenapp, and what is this story with Xenapp? Well, the Xenapp story is one that is, I don't know, it is a very wild and woolly story, because Citrix made a lot of noise back in the pre-7.0 days, as 7.0 was being released, about the elimination of Xenapp as an actual product line. And in fact, when Xendesktop came out in version 7, Xendesktop was intended to be a singular solution that fulfilled the role of both Xenapp and Xendesktop. They spent a lot of marketing dollars, time, and effort in getting people off and away from that name of Xenapp. Well, apparently, or one assumes, or one guesses that the industry did not really resonate much with the change of names and consolidating the technologies of Xenapp with Xendesktop. And so in what I think is the only instance of this happening in the IT world ever, a product that was intended to be removed was brought back online, was brought back into the world and reintroduced as Xenapp version 7.5. Now, this probably is still not answering your question, because you're probably still asking, okay, so what the heck happened? Well, in Xendesktop version 7.0, the functionality of Xenapp was still there. You can still deploy VDAs to a server and run shared hosted desktops on servers for the classic Xenapp or Citrix presentation server or Citrix MetaFrame experience. That existed in Xendesktop. And in fact, there was even a version of Xendesktop called Xendesktop, I believe it was Apps Edition, that would give you the Xenapp experience atop Xendesktop. What the heck happened with Xenapp? Well, let's just call it a change by the marketing department. And so what was Xendesktop Apps Edition has returned now as Xenapp. The biggest difference between Xenapp version 7.5 and the previous version of the product referred to as Xenapp is that the new version 7.5 runs on Citrix's FMA architecture as opposed to the old IMA architecture. We'll talk more about IMA and FMA as we go about through this series, but I wanted to just make you aware that what the heck happened and what are you seeing here is in just about every case a decision that had to do with the marketing department and product naming. I will tell you that one additional change was made as well, and if I can bring up a little web page here, one additional change was made here also to the certification. And if you take a look at Citrix's website here on Citrix certification, you may notice that back in the original release of this series, the one filmed on 7071, I was referring to a certification called the CCA-AD for apps and desktops. That certification has been renamed to CCA-V, and then CCP-V, and then CCE-V. And that is all that has changed. There is absolutely nothing that has changed other than the fact that the app and desktop certifications have been renamed to virtualization, as you can see up here at the top. So 7.5, what is it? It's another name change for Citrix. Good job, Citrix. Way to continue with the constant name changes of the product. And in fact, one might argue that, I don't know, I think one of the hardest parts about dealing with Citrix is just keeping track of all the different name changes that they have. I mentioned also that Citrix has kind of an intended audience for each of these exams. For the 1YO200 exam, the intended audience here are those who manage, maintain, monitor, and troubleshoot Xendesktop 7 solutions, and may hold these following job titles: systems administrators, technical support staff, integrators, Citrix consultants. So again, the 1YO200 exam is designed for just managing an existing infrastructure and dealing with one that is already in production. As you begin to create new infrastructures, the 1YO300 exam focuses on those topics if you're the person who builds, tests, and rolls out such infrastructures. You're an engineer, you're a desktop virtualization consultant, or a partner. Now, also associated with the 300 exam, and again, this content I've just pulled off of Citrix exam prep guide, so there's nothing that should be a surprise here if you've actually downloaded their prep guide. The intended audience also possesses an intermediate level knowledge of app and desktop virtualization technologies and has experience deploying app and desktop virtualization solutions in an enterprise environment. When we're talking about the different delivery mechanisms that Xendesktop supports, be aware that they're really kind of focused on three different use cases, and these are the use cases you'll see down here. The first is Xenapp hosted or classic Xenapp hosted shared desktops. Same thing here for Xenapp hosted applications. I'm delivering applications to users. Or classic Xendesktop VDI type environments. So both the VDI route and the application or PC refresh route are all the ones that we'll be testing against on that 1YO300 exam. Down here also are just a couple of notes. These are again also pulled off of Citrix's enablement guide or prep guide for the exam. The 1YO200 is a 66 question exam written in English with a passing score of 66%, which in my mind seems like really not that many questions, although Citrix is giving you a very gracious 205 minutes to complete that exam. Plenty of time. If you're a non-native English speaker, you can be granted up to 30 minutes for a time extension. And depending on what your situation is, that'll either be automatic or you'll need to apply for it. So plenty of time there for your questions, plenty of time to take your time and really kind of understand what those questions are. As you move to the 300 level exam, the number of questions actually goes down to 57 minutes, but the amount of time goes up to 240 minutes. The passing score is still 66%. The exams are administered through Pearson VUE. There's the website when it comes time to schedule. And be aware that the first exam is going to be $150 US for 1YO 200, but $300 for 1YO 300. So twice as much if you plan on taking that next step up. Also, I want to talk here just kind of about the outline that we'll be going through together here with this series. I think I mentioned earlier that the whole point of this series is to try to introduce you to the new topics as you would organically introduce them if you were doing this studying on your own. And so we begin with installation. Once you got to get the stuff installed, a process that used to be fraught with danger. These days is actually quite a bit streamlined. You can get a new Xendesktop server up and running in not that much time. And that's a great change from some previous versions. We then go through how to license things and how to create your master images and install that delivery agent. So how to create those basic core golden images that will become the foundation by which all of your applications will get delivered. We'll then create machine groups, or machine catalogs and delivery groups. As you'll find out, machine catalogs are collections of machines that share similar behaviors or similar characteristics. Delivery groups then address those machines with the rules for how users will connect up to the resources exposed on those virtual machines or physical machines. We will then configure the Citrix Storefront Store, which is the user's front door to access the applications that you will have available. They will access that front door using the Citrix Receiver client, which you'll need to deploy out to those users, or with this version, you can have users deploy it to themselves, even if they don't have administrative privileges. We'll then talk about an interesting edge case called remote PC access. So you can actually use Xendesktop as a mechanism to proxy access for users to their own PCs if they need to access them from outside networks. You can accomplish that by just creating a different set of machine catalogs and delivery groups and delivering those out. We'll then talk about applications and how you can layer technologies like Microsoft AppV to stream those applications down onto your assets, server or desktop machines, when it comes time to deliver the applications. We'll talk about Citrix Studio policies, which in this version and in recent versions has become the single source, the single go-to point for configuring the user experience of the environment you've set up. There's lots of Studio policies, and in fact, most of the management has been moved into Studio policies so that they can be delivered either as a policy through Citrix or as a group policy through Active Directory. Now, that nugget number 11, we'll talk about the structure of implementing the policies. But I also have a little bonus nugget here, number 12, that will be a review of the Citrix Studio policies, not with an eye towards how they're implemented, but more of an eye towards why and when they'll be implemented. This one is more the, I guess I can call it the consulting, right? The free consulting hour here. I've spent a lot of time working with Citrix, and over the years, there's just some good ways in which you implement the policies, and I hope to be able to relay to you well, why you would implement them and in what use cases you might, because there's a whole bunch of them that can make your mind spin as you start to go through them. We'll talk about user profiles and how to implement technologies that can improve user profiles and make them roam around the different assets that you'll make available. Talk about the Citrix Director and how you can enable access to your help desk people so that they can troubleshoot things on your behalf, but in a very limited, controlled sense. Printing in Citrix technologies has always been a nightmare. Well, in this version, printing gets even that much less of a nightmare with some new technologies like the Citrix Printing Services and Citrix Printing Server that I think you'll really appreciate. We will then move into a number of nuggets on provisioning services. And these 4 nuggets here are kind of the backbone of that entire provisioning services infrastructure. You don't have to implement provisioning services, and in many circumstances you won't want to. But if you do intend on delivering these assets, again, servers or desktops, in a way that they can be delivered at the moment that they're needed and be provisioned at the moment that they're booted, well, provisioning services offers an infrastructure to accomplish that. We'll talk about how to install it and prepare for it, and then how to deal with provisioning services vDisks in both private and standard mode, as well as how to manage, or as well as how to update those vDisks when it comes time to apply Windows patches or application changes and so forth. Really interesting technology, one that you'll want to take a look at before you implement, because it has its uses and it also has a few concerns associated. We'll spend just a minute on delegated administration. Citrix is a great model for doing delegated administration with this version, and a mind-numbing nugget on securing external access with NetScaler. You'll also see, at least from a high-level whiteboarding perspective, how to configure high availability for those solutions, and in what places you'll need to incorporate high availability technologies in order to ensure your environment is always available for users. This last nugget is optional. If you plan on implementing your assets on top of the Xen Server hypervisor, well, then you can take a look at this last nugget that is a very short introduction in configuring Xen Server for Xendesktop. But recall, Xendesktop actually works with all of the major hypervisors, VMware, Hyper-V, and Xen Server. So you have options for which of the hypervisors you'll want to choose for hosting your infrastructure. I mentioned that this series focuses on 2 of the 3 exams in the CCA certification tiered structure. And these 2 again, 1YO200, 1YO300. There is an exam prep guide that you can find online. A lot of the information I've talked about here in this nugget is kind of pulled from that prep guide, in some cases pulled directly from the prep guide. That prep guide will give you all of the detailed information to prepare for the exam. It will give you details about the objectives and specifically the types of actions that you'll want to understand if you want to be successful in passing that exam. I've kind of copied just some of the objective percentages here for 200 and 300. About 30% for managing that solution, 15% for maintaining, 21% for monitoring, and 35% for troubleshooting that Xendesktop 7 solution. So you can focus your studies on the types of actions that are most important to be successful with the exam. On the 300, about 1/3 is for installing the technology and just about 2/3 on configuring its technical components. Only a very small 8% there on testing configurations. So if you figure there's some 60-odd questions for 200 and 50-odd questions for 300, you can kind of then take those numbers and multiply them by these percentages to get a feel for what number of questions you'll have that associate with each of these different percentages, each of these major objectives. We will be working with a full network here, a CVT Nuggets network that I encourage you to actually replicate at home. We learn by doing, and by replicating the demonstrations, by replicating all the different actions that you'll see me accomplish here in this series, that will not only get your own Xendesktop infrastructure, but it will also help you understand exactly why we're going through the steps that we are. This network will have a domain controller. We will be working predominantly with a single Xendesktop server XD1. We'll only incorporate XD2 and that almost very last nugget when we talk about high availability. We'll be putting our assets on top of 2 Xen server machines, XS1 and XS2. And we'll have a server here called AppV that we'll use for deploying AppV applications or hosting AppV applications. All of these will be located in a domain, at least here, that I call company.pri. My domain is in the subnet 192.168.1.0. It's a 24-bit mask on the subnet, so 255.255.255.0. And then I also have another machine out here, my NetScaler virtual machine, that we'll talk about for that one single nugget on NetScaler. Personally, I prefer using VMware Workstation. It's a great solution that I can put right here on my desktop to help you. You can use whatever hypervisor you see fit for deploying out your test infrastructure as you prepare yourself. So again, highly recommend kind of playing along as you see the different demonstrations and things here in this series. I've been working with CVT Nuggets for a very long time, and it is always a joy to get to put together these series. And I look forward over the next series of Nuggets for the opportunity to work with you, share with you, and learn with you about managing and deploying app and desktop solutions atop Citrix Xendesktop version 7.x. Once again, my name is Greg Shields. We're going to have a lot of fun. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.